The spotlight never sleeps, and right now, it is blindingly fixed on Remy Ma. There's an undeniable gravity to her name, a force that pulls every headline, every trending topic, and every piece of social media data directly into her orbit. No matter how you feel about her, the reality is staggering. Remy Ma is navigating a year of absolute chaos and calculated triumph. And if you think you know where this is going, brace yourself, because the plot deepens with every passing second. Let's peel back the layers of this unfolding drama immediately. The chess pieces are moving fast. This very weekend, Remy Ma is set to unleash her second major cinematic project on Lifetime. For most, a television milestone of this magnitude would be a career pinnacle. For her, it's merely a footnote in a much larger, more calculated takeover. Silence is not an option for her, which is exactly why the Remy network is aggressively expanding, unleashing a relentless wave of media that demands the industry's undivided attention. Even I am forced to pause and dissect the sheer volume of her output. The metrics don't lie, and the digital footprint she is leaving behind is massive. But the real tremors are being felt through the speakers. Remy Ma has dropped 2 explosive musical bombs this year. The first was a calculated, lethal strike, the viral anthem Why You Lying? A track designed to tear through the defenses of her estranged husband, Papoose, and the other woman caught in the crossfire of their unraveling lives. Soon after, she hijacked the airwaves on French Montana's lethal track, Ever Since You Left. Let's be entirely honest, she didn't just feature on that song, she completely possessed it. Her delivery was pure, unadulterated dominance. That exact record was weaponized by television giants ESPN and ABC as the definitive anthem for the NBA Finals, forcing her voice into the homes. That is not just success, that is cultural saturation. Look closely at the board. Remy Ma is ruthlessly accumulating power. Her strategic pull-ups on various podcast networks show a woman letting her art handle the bloodshed. The target of her venom is clear to anyone listening. The real question is the suffocating silence from those she dragged into the light. Their inability to strike back speaks volumes about who truly holds the power in this war. Which brings us to the breaking point of this entire timeline. What cataclysmic event occurred hours ago to set the internet on fire? Perhaps a frantic scroll through Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook gave you a glimpse of the madness. If you missed the initial wave, the fallout is already invading YouTube Shorts. But a specific piece of footage is spreading like wildfire for a dangerous reason. Once you witness it, the entire narrative shifts. Remy Ma breathes the very essence of New York. And with the city currently paralyzed by a historic, once-in-a-generation basketball triumph, the streets are humming with pure electricity. Today, the concrete jungle stopped for a monumental victory parade. Like countless others, I had my eyes glued to the unfolding chaos. The floats were heavily guarded, carrying a golden circle of the elite athletes, moguls, and cultural icons. Through the sea of flashbulbs, I caught glimpses of Chris Rock, Tracy Morgan, and the legendary Spike Lee navigating the madness. Moments later, Ja Rule stood tall above the crowd, screaming a classic anthem that shook the city to its core. The atmosphere was suffocatingly intense. The city was trapped in a state of pure euphoria. But just as the climax seemed to pass, the entire narrative fractured. Something shifted in the crowd, generating a wave of shockwaves that immediately triggered frantic speculation. There, rising above the chaos, stood Remy Ma, standing shoulder to shoulder with her longtime brother-in-arms, Fat Joe, commanding the masses with a live rendition of Lean Back. Now, navigate the digital space carefully. Due to aggressive copyright algorithms, certain audio tracks had to be stripped from standard uploads. To experience the raw, unmuted reality of that performance, you'll need to hunt down my specific uploads across Shorts, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The digital gatekeepers at YouTube are notoriously volatile with music licensing, and blocking an entire broadcast without warning is a risk we couldn't take. But the raw evidence is permanently burned onto the internet. And this is where the mystery thickens. Every single time a public adversary, much like Claressa Shields did with her recent, highly public jabs regarding Remy Ma's private romantic entanglements, tries to bury her name, Remy Ma miraculously reincarnates herself on a grander, more untouchable platform. It's no longer a coincidence, it's a terrifying pattern of survival. Fresh off a massive, star-studded birthday celebration and a string of high-profile nightclub takeovers, she effortlessly inserts herself into the absolute center of New York's greatest historic milestone. We are witnessing a masterclass in strategic timing, a calculated pattern of public re-emergence that very few can pull off. Just as the smoke settles from her star-studded birthday gala and a string of elite nightlife takeovers, she maneuvers directly into the epicenter of New York's most historic celebration. Remy Ma understands the power of optical warfare better than anyone in the game. Let me take you behind the curtain of reality for a moment based on what I know firsthand. I have walked in these exact circles. I have been inside the inner sanctum of sports championship inner circles, celebrating alongside franchises I deeply support. Securing a slot in an event of this magnitude is a logistical and political labyrinth that outsiders cannot begin to comprehend. It demands an unspoken currency of high-level alliances, institutional respect, and raw cultural leverage to even get your name whispered in those high-stakes meetings. The average spectator remains completely blind to the mechanics of this world until they are forced to witness it from the inside. Having operated on both sides of that velvet rope multiple times, the reality is stark: entry into a monumental victory parade is never granted accidentally. It requires authentic, undeniable stature, bulletproof industry relationships, and a definitive cultural reason to occupy that space. This is precisely why the sight of Remy Ma commanding that float sent shockwaves through the community. Deny it all you want, but that hyper-visible placement is absolute proof of lethal career motion, undeniable modern relevance, and structural authority within hip-hop. This is the definition of true cultural gravity. This is what it looks like when your name commands immediate compliance from the architects of the city. In hindsight, it was a genius chess move by the New York Knicks management to seamlessly weave the DNA of the city's street legend into this athletic milestone. While basketball royalty like Carmelo Anthony and other iconic alumni navigated the dense parade routes, the true narrative shifted toward how aggressively the organization weaponized hip-hop culture to define the day. As the raw footage confirms, Fat Joe and Remy Ma stood as the definitive gatekeepers of that identity, while Ja Rule stepped onto the pavement to unleash his own musical fury. For the uninitiated who have never analyzed the anatomy of a sports victory, this structure completely deviates from a standard holiday march or commercial festival. In a routine parade, a linear path is followed from start to finish, and the moment the final line is crossed, the curtain closes. A championship victory, however, operates under far more complex mechanics. The mobile parade is merely the introductory hook to a much larger spectacle. The strategic blueprint dictates that once the armada of floats and heavy transport vehicles complete their route, the elite gather at a highly secured central fortress for the true climax. It is at this final destination where a massive, heavily restricted stage presentation takes place, a theater where franchise players, high-profile moguls, and hand-picked cultural figures take the microphone to anchor the legacy of the title. That is where the real history is recorded. That is where the highest-stakes interactions unfold. And beneath the surface, that is exactly where the most volatile, unannounced live performances are engineered to happen. Consequently, the psychological warfare isn't over, and the probability of Remy Ma hijacking the main stage for an unannounced encore before midnight is dangerously high. Whispers are already tearing through the industry that Alicia Keys is being maneuvered into position for a surprise entrance. Whether that calculated play solidifies remains locked behind closed doors, as no official confirmation has leaked to the press. Then there is the enigma of Jay-Z, a phantom presence whose arrival remains entirely unpredictable as he weighs whether to emerge or remain heavily guarded in the shadows. The digital space is still actively fractured, debating the massive, recent controversies threatening his legacy, though a monumental city triumph has a way of forcing people to temporarily bury their grievances. Regardless of the outcome, watching this high-stakes social dynamic unfold is nothing short of fascinating. But let's strip away the noise and look at the cold reality behind this broadcast. today served as a ruthless calibration of exactly where Remy Ma sits on the food chain. Whether you pray for her downfall or applaud her survival, she navigates the industry like a woman fully aware of her premium value. She commands the room by default. She positions herself in the exact center of monumental cultural shifts, forcing the collective internet to keep her name alive. No matter how desperately her critics try to minimize her, Remy Ma remains an explosive catalyst for public discourse the second her boots hit the pavement. Contrast that with the background noise. For weeks, Papoose has been on a relentless media campaign, desperate to control the narrative by weaponizing podcasts to broadcast his tales of ultimate betrayal. He has been taking calculated, under-the-table shots at Fat Joe and the Terror Squad, aggressively claiming they abandoned Remy Ma when the wolves were at the door. But the court of public opinion is experiencing a massive disconnect, and the fans are flat out refusing to swallow that script. The optical evidence directly contradicts his words. When the dust settles, Remy Ma and Fat Joe are the ones occupying the high-security rooms, standing shoulder to shoulder, and controlling the visual narrative. That is the definition of structural momentum. That is what bulletproof industry loyalty actually looks like. So let's be entirely transparent, seeing the elite tier of entertainment integrated into this historic sports milestone was entirely expected. The real shockwave was seeing Remy Ma positioned as the absolute focal point of the entire celebration. And if we look at the wreckage of this timeline honestly, had the foundations of her marriage not been completely shattered by public scandal and suffocating tension, the landscape today would be unrecognizable. Papoose could have easily occupied a square inch of that historic float, absorbing the euphoria of the city. He wouldn't have been handed a microphone, and he certainly wouldn't have been given a headline performance slot, but as a self-proclaimed, lifelong devotee of the franchise, this should have been his ultimate full-circle validation. Instead, the universe redirected the spotlight. Remy Ma stood solitary and untouchable at the epicenter of New York's cultural peak while the digital world watched in absolute awe. He was supposed to be on that heavy machinery, acknowledging the masses, absorbing the gravity of a once-in-a-generation victory, and standing as a protective pillar next to his wife. Instead, the internet's tracking data confirms a devastating reality: he is totally invisible while Remy Ma commands the gaze of millions. This brings us to the haunting question currently paralyzing his fanbase: if Papoose truly possesses the die-hard allegiance to this city and its team that he has built his brand on for decades, where was he when the concrete jungle exploded in celebration? The cameras scanned the high-profile watch parties, nothing. The tracking footage at elite local venues, street rallies, and official franchise gatherings showed zero sign of life. Not a single sighting at a premier sports lounge, an exclusive club, or the exact coordinates where a true fanatic would be losing their mind. When the history books were being written in real time, his presence was completely wiped from the map. Meanwhile, Fat Joe operated like a man possessed, anchoring his presence at every single game, whether home or away, ensuring his face was permanently burned into the broadcast. The fans documented it. The media lenses locked onto him. His DNA was woven into the victory. His cultural alignment with that historic sports milestone was absolutely undeniable. Consequently, the internet is demanding answers as to why that exact same passion was completely missing from other prominent figures who heavily base their brands on their supposed blood-deep ties to the franchise. What is the tactical explanation for this? What structural reason forces someone to stay completely silent during a once-in-a-generation athletic takeover? When you are constantly weaponizing your social media to broadcast your elite status, your unmatched street influence, and your legendary standing in the city, the masses demand your physical manifestation during historic moments of triumph. That is an unwritten law of the culture. The heavy glare of the public spotlight possesses a ruthless way of filtering out who is organically stitched into the fabric of the community versus who is simply running their mouth for digital metrics. If you carry yourself with the pride of being one of New York's definitive lyrical architects and its most fanatical sports defender, the public will aggressively interrogate your location when the entire metropolis collapses into celebration and your face is entirely absent from the epicenter. Were you hiding in the dense layout of the crowd? Were you lurking somewhere deep behind the velvet ropes of the production teams? Or were you merely sitting on a couch, paralyzed, watching the live feed unfold on a screen like millions of ordinary spectators across the globe? Those brutal interrogations become entirely inescapable when your name is permanently fused to the public discourse, yet your physical presence is entirely erased from the frame. And this is precisely where a devastating realization begins to fracture the narrative. Individuals frequently burn through years of their lives under the delusion that their next business venture will be grander, their next cultural opportunity will be monumental, and their upcoming chapter will seamlessly vindicate their past downfalls. Then, the universe delivers a masterclass in stripping away the illusions, forcing you to recognize exactly what genuine power and value look like before you let it slip through your fingers. This is the exact reason why the collective internet is hyper-focused on the anatomy of this unfolding fallout, because from an objective, external perspective, Remy Ma is visibly operating at an elite tier of survival. She is continuing to execute high-stakes live performances. She is seamlessly securing premium media contracts. She remains effortlessly locked into the absolute center of massive cultural phenomena. And while she commands that high-level career velocity, others are left entirely stranded, forced to witness her trajectory from a cold, distant perimeter. Whether you validate her personal execution or despise her strategic maneuvers, the staggering visual contrast between her elevation and their stagnation is impossible for the public to erase. Let's dissect the sheer gravity of this moment for a second. Do you comprehend the tectonic scale of a championship parade dominating a metropolis of that size, particularly when that specific fan base has endured agonizing decades of drought to finally claim the crown? The psychological energy is entirely different, the media focus is blinding, and the entire geographical region integrates into a singular entity of triumph. These are the defining, immortal memories that fans carry with them straight to the grave. Now, analyze the mechanics of being hand-selected to perform on a moving fortress in front of millions of screaming citizens. That placement is never engineered by accident. It stands as a direct, unadulterated reflection of institutional respect hard-earned over decades, the raw cultural currency you currently hold, and the undeniable validation you have built within the infrastructure of the city. It speaks volumes about your modern visibility. It anchors your unshakable relevance, and whether your adversaries respect it or not, it permanently solidifies the fact that your name carries ultimate weight when the gatekeepers are making high-stakes decisions behind closed doors. With all that laid bare on the table, ultimate congratulations are in order for the die-hard New York Knicks faithful. I am not cut from the cloth of those bitter commentators who prey on another organization's downfall. The franchise might not be the primary squad I ride for, but I possess the maturity to respect exactly what this historic triumph signifies for the concrete jungle and its long-suffering fan base. When you look back at the historical timelines, there have been multiple elite athletes anchoring that specific roster who once wore the jersey of the franchises I personally support. Because of that, I completely comprehend the sheer magnitude of why the city is celebrating this historic championship run with such raw, unchecked fury.